I would like to welcome everybody to the May 10th, 2023 Spokane Plan Commission hearing. Tonight we have one hearing on the agenda, which is our short-term rental code update. Before we begin, Jackie, if you can take roll call, please.
Michael Baker.
Here.
Jesse Bank is here, but he's out of the room at the moment. Todd Byrather.
Here.
Christopher Britt is not here. Greg Francis.
Here.
Chris Neely, not here. Ryan Patterson is not here. Carol Shook is not here. Tim Williams.
Here.
Clifford Winger.
Here.
Okay, so we do have a
I
quorum.
see Commissioner Neely just logged in.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Thank you. Do we have a quorum? Good.
Thank you. Okay, before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and read our Plan Commission hearing procedures. So please follow the rules of decorum for the public, and following rules apply. Please silence your cell phones when entering council chambers. No clapping, cheering, or booing. No public outbursts. The president may impose time limits for individual public comments, and those time limits are 3 minutes apiece. I don't see any group presentations, but group presentations we can do up to 15 minutes. All persons and commission members shall wait to be recognized by the president before speaking. Persons testifying are asked to avoid repetition and limit comments to specific project and code compliance. Each speaker shall follow all instructions from the president so that his or her remarks may be heard, understood, and recorded. All comments to the commission shall be directed to the secretary, which is Spencer, to be appropriately entered into the public record. This includes oral, written, and email comments. No modes of expression not provided by these rules, including but not limited to demonstrations, banners, applause, profanity, vulgar language, or personal insults, will be permitted. In the event such disorder persists, the president may require the removal of the instigators, recess, or adjourn the meeting. I don't think we've had that problem before. Hopefully we won't tonight. So with that, I will call up Amanda Beck to begin our hearing.
Good afternoon, Plan Commission. So tonight's public hearing is just going to be me, Donna. I will be carrying Donna's torch. It's been long burning, so hopefully we make some progress tonight. For members of the public, because I know I've talked to you guys several times about this, but for members of the public, just to set the foundation of how we regulate short-term rentals currently in the city, I wanted to talk about what is in the code right now. So this was originally drafted in 2015, drafted and adopted in 2015. And it was based on the bed and breakfast code that we have existing. So that's why we have what you see as Type A and Type B. Type B being particularly more aligned with that bed and breakfast type use, with the particular call out about commercial meetings such as banquets or something where someone would pay to attend. So this code was drafted to balance at the time the kind of like growing interest in this accessory residential use, and then also feedback from the Hotel Motel Association that we got at the time. So that's why you see that they are limited to the residential zones in the city. But there has been a big shift, and since 2015, the vacation rental industry has just grown a ton. The industry is looking to shift their business model this year pretty aggressively and really focus on earnings after COVID, because all of the platforms that operate obviously saw a hit, like many businesses. So I've been trying to kind of keep up on what the big players are doing as a way to try and make sure that the proposed code changes are really staying in line with potential future usage or expansion. So one of those things, and I can email this out because each of those images is a link to a particular article. If you are plugged into this sort of thing, the CEO of Airbnb, which is one of the more recognizable vacation platforms, has started to talk about and roll out new features of their platform this year. One of them is called Rooms, where they are, I guess, marketing to people who don't have the income to rent an entire house. And so trying to get around the somewhat iffy feeling of renting just a room from someone who will be there while you're there, they're trying to spin this as stay with a local and get insight from them, almost like you're being guided by them in your trip to wherever you're staying. Similarly, VRBO is taking a different tact and trying to really hammer it home with people now that people are going out and vacationing again post-COVID. So their focus is on their really strong customer support and private homes, so whole homes, moving away from what Airbnb is doing in their diversification. And then obviously, I think it's pretty blatant to everyone that there has been a shift. So hybrid work is really big now. People do hybrid work, and they don't just do expat hybrid work from a different country. People are doing hybrid work in the States and visiting different cities. So why is this important? Why are we talking about this in context of this particular code amendment? We wanted to make sure that the proposed code changes are being informed by actual usage. And so we have signed a contract with Granicus to locate short-term rentals in the city, provide us data on how many there are, but more importantly, to track the trends, because trying to get numbers on short-term rentals is very difficult because it's not only seasonal, but it fluctuates any given week. What listings are active. And so right now, Granicus is working through the listings on all of the different platforms that operate in the state of Washington to figure out where they are located. And then once we are through the public hearing process and council makes their final decision on how these amendments will be made, they'll be supporting our current planning staff in then going through and communicating with the property owners about if they don't have a permit, coming into compliance, what that might mean for them in regard to building or fire code, and the permit from current planning for the short-term rental. So, to put some numbers to this, since 2015, we've issued 219 permits. 44 of them are active. And as of the time of our meeting, there are 648 short-term rental units noted from Granicus. In February, when they first started their work, that was 666. So already seeing some fluctuations going on based on active listings.
Can I ask a question, Amanda?
Yeah.
They make sure there's no duplication between when they're looking at
Yes.
different services?
Yes. And this graph particularly, they note that vacation rental platforms do more than just short-term rentals. So short-term rental is 30 days or less, but you can also rent a room or an entire house for longer than that on any of these platforms. So they're also tracking that for us, but that is just kind of informational for our own purposes. And it's a little bit hard, I think, for them to sort of extrapolate depending on the various platforms and the way that people host their listing.
Thank you.
But so the listing monitoring is helping to show the seasonal peaks and troughs that this goes through. I'm I'm really interested to see how this goes. We have them under contract for renewal for 4 additional years, so 5 years total. So we'll really start to build up a body of data to say, oh, okay, we see a peak around Bloomsday or graduation for the universities or whatever it is. And then this has also been interesting, I think, for myself and for Donna, because it has kind of highlighted what we've heard a little bit anecdotally. So this is both qualitative and quantitative data that has really been helpful in shaping what we are proposing with these code changes. So where do they exist? We know currently they're only permitted in residential zones. But as you can see on this particularly zoomed out map, they definitely exist in places where they are currently not permitted, particularly in the downtown core, which makes sense. If downtown is our entertainment cultural hub, people would want to be there when they visit. It's where most of the activities and restaurants are, so that would, if I didn't live in Spokane, that would be the place I'd want to stay, so I could really get an experience of the downtown social life. Some of the other data that Granicus has provided breaks things down. So you'll see that it breaks it down by rooms, how many bedrooms are in a structure, whether it's single family, multifamily. And so we could start asking ourselves, well, are people renting, some of Spokane's most exquisite, architecturally interesting homes? Are we a candidate for Plum Guide, which is a luxury vacation rental company? Or are we just sticking with Airbnb and VRBO? Is it impacting mostly multifamily structures, or is it mostly impacting our single-family detached? Which I highlighted, it is predominantly in our single-family structures in the city. And then not surprisingly, most people are interested in renting the whole home rather than just a few rooms. Although, knowing what Airbnb is pushing this year, we might see a shift in that, so that'll be interesting to track. So, the proposed changes really focus on 3 core issues. We want to create a path to compliance, balancing allowing this use with its impacts, which we are not the only community that knows that short-term rentals have an impact on housing supply. And then lastly, just increasing safety compliance. So I think, are trying to thread a very narrow needle on allowing short-term rentals while recognizing that they are having an impact on the housing supply when we're in the middle of a housing emergency. So one of the things that we're doing to try and address this is the proposed code has established unit caps, which are inclusive of an accessory dwelling unit. So if you have an ADU on site, depending on what your zone, residential or non-residential, or what the structure is, that ADU would count towards your total. So we're trying to limit the effect of whole multifamily buildings or whole properties becoming just a short-term rental. Obviously, we want to have more units in the long-term supply. The other thing that we're doing in that regard is proposing a platform fee. So to try and level the playing field for short-term rentals in comparison to, say, hotels or motels or even bed and breakfasts, we're proposing a fee that the platform would collect. They would send it to Department of Revenue, and then the DOR remits it back to us, similar to other things like the taxes that we collect for sales tax or lodging tax. And then Donna and I went through a very lengthy internal review. So we worked really closely with the fire marshal and the building official to come up with a threshold. So currently, if you are operating a short-term rental in a non-residential zone, what we do is we have you go through the change of use process to become basically a hotel motel use, regardless of what the building is. Say, you're a multifamily building and you have 7 units devoted to short-term rentals. So the change of use process is a pretty high threshold, requires you to bring the building up to code in regard to, if it requires fire sprinkling, egress, anything like that. And so we worked with the fire marshal and the building official to say, hey, these are still residential use in nature. How can we streamline permitting? That way, if this is, say, a small-time homeowner or a landlord who has a sixplex, that they aren't going through a large process to change this use when it's still residential in nature and easily could transition back into being fully long-term housing. And so part of that is, and I'll talk about this on a future slide, is establishing a threshold for multifamily that fire felt comfortable with, and that we also tried to align with. Is this a short-term rental use in a residential zone? What are the potential impacts to adjacent properties? Or is this a short-term rental in a non-residential zone that is more able to absorb possible impacts, like say downtown, where the impacts aren't going to be felt as strongly. One of the other things that we're doing as a best practice we've seen from other localities is we have put in the code that we would like the property owner to complete a life safety compliance check. So that would get notarized, and that just says that they acknowledge that, yes, there is appropriate egress, that the fire extinguishers are working, that there's smoke detectors, and that if there aren't, particularly because it's notarized, that they understand that that liability is on them because they are choosing to rent it as a short-term rental. So when we originally started drafting this, we had workshopped it originally under the first code changes that came for Shaping Spokane Housing, and it started more as a surgical amendment to create a path to compliance for the existing units that we had heard about, but because we had not hired Granicus yet, we did not know how many existed. But Donna's work had originally encompassed a much more comprehensive update to the code itself. And then following COVID and the changes that happened with that and how bonkers both the housing and rental market became, we decided to pause with moving forward and go back to the drawing board and do all of that work that I just mentioned, working with the fire marshal and the building official, seeing other ways that we could update the code to make it both user-friendly and clear, but also better to implement on our side to make sure that we can do better at tracking, monitoring, and compliance. And so we've talked about this with you guys and the public at various different points under Shaping Spokane Housing. When we went to the winter market back in 2021, we included on one of the posters where we asked people to put check marks about how they felt about things. We also had a study session with City Council, and then, actually, I forgot to add that, we had a study session this year also in March with them to update them on the more comprehensive changes. Additionally, I will be taking this to the Finance Committee on Monday, just to update them on the changes since the March study session and to get their approval to put it on the agenda, hopefully. Not a ton of public comments. Everything I received in time to get it into your packet was put into your packet. Obviously, public comments are being accepted all the way through the public hearing process. So that means all the way up till City Council votes. So anything that we receive will just be tacked on in a new exhibit for City Council to review. And I did include comments that came in under that first phase of Shaping Spokane Housing when we were doing ADUs and short plats and all of that. So some of these you've seen previously, and a few of them are new. So this right here is the core of the code changes. I tried to put it as succinctly as possible. My apologies for the Exhibit A in your agenda. I know it looks like a lot of red lines. It looks like a lot of red. But so the basic proposed changes here are the unit cap. So if you are in a residential zone and you are in a detached, attached, or duplex structure, you are limited to one short-term rental. And if you have an ADU on site and you are in the RA or RSF zones, we have kept in the language about requiring owner occupancy. So that means that you need to live in either the accessory dwelling unit or their primary home for 6 months of the year or more. That could potentially change. I know that Councilmember Kinnear is interested in maintaining that. She had mentioned that at study session, but that might change once we hit City Council. So then looking at multifamily or 3 or more units. So in the residential zones, we've limited this to 20% of the total residential units in the structure. We are allowing rounding up in the code, regardless of which zone you're in. So if you have 3.2, depending on the total residential units in your structure, you can round up to 4. And then if you have a structure that's not fire sprinklered and you want to start a short-term rental use, or you want to permit it for the first time appropriately, you do need to meet our building and fire code regulations. And then obviously, because this is in a residential zone, we want to keep the structure residential in nature. No commercial lighting, no commercial parking, no commercial signage, no like drastically altering the look of the building so it does not appear to the average person as a residential use from the view at the sidewalk. The other thing I'll just say, and this applies regardless of what zone you're in, for historic buildings, there are caveats in the building and fire code about historic buildings. We know that it's always tricky trying to update historic buildings because sometimes preservation clashes a little bit with building and fire code regulations. That being said, for something like a mansion apartment in the city, if they wanted to start a short-term rental use in that particular building, the recommendation would be to work with the building official to see, because it would probably be on a case-by-case basis. Does that historic building have the original fire escape? Does it have fire sprinklers? What kind of egress does it have? So they'll be looking at it on a case-by-case basis, but obviously it would not be a hard, flat, no, you can't start a short-term rental unless you can put in fire sprinklers.
But in that case, wouldn't that be a change of use?
So no, not the way we've drafted the code. The threshold is really the key there about whether it's a change of use or not. So if you're in a residential zone and you're 20% or under, you're not changing the use. If you're in a non-residential zone, say downtown core, and you're 30% or below, it's not a change of use. And that was the threshold that the fire marshal was most comfortable with, because obviously, his sole purpose is making sure life safety is being met and that people who are in that structure can get out in the case of an emergency. And so going above 30% is when you're going to have to do a change of use.
That's really helpful. So those thresholds were established by the fire official, not by some policy decision of... No,
it was, we came up with it through a very long series of meetings where Fire Marshal Lansdall was able to say, that feels too high. I don't feel comfortable being able to respond to an emergency event and make sure that everyone's safe. But that being said, we're not allowing people to go above the 20% in residential zones because we want to keep those residential in nature and we want to keep more of the units in long-term housing. If someone wants to go above that 30% threshold in all of our other zones, they can do it. Again, though, they have to go through the change of use process. So that might mean, putting in fire sprinklers or updating fully to whatever code is in place at the time that you submit your short-term rental permit, which I would just note that we are updating our building code this year.
And is that exception, I guess it'd be, where is that? That you could go through a change of use process?
So if you look in your packet, in Exhibit A, let's see, on page A8, under section B where it says maximum number of short-term rental units. And we can spell that out further if you
No,
don't
it's
think
helpful.
it's
I'll look.
clarified.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a question. Says if not fire sprinkled, must come up to code. So does this mean that all short-term rentals would require sprinklers?
So we said if it's required, I can't think of an instance where it wouldn't be. So obviously the International Residential Code looks at detached, attached, and duplexes as basically single family. And then once you hit 3 or more units, you're kicking into a commercial building code.
Okay,
So
so this is structures with only 3 or more units.
Yes,
So if I say I have an ADU and I want to do a short-term rental, I'm not going to have to sprinkle that
correct.
ADU.
Correct. Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we worked so long with the building official and fire marshal is we tried to find the natural kind of thresholds that already existed on the building and fire code side, which is why even though it seems a little bit clunky, we looked at things in the residential zone nature and then anything that's in a non-residential zone and then by the structure type.
And that's within a single structure, that 3-unit threshold, right? Not 3 units on a lot that's a detached ADU and a house with 2 units in it.
Right.
It has to be within, okay.
Okay, another question for you.
Yes.
So structures with 3+ units, so if I build a 4-plex, which we can do now under BOCA,
Right.
I could do 1 short-term rental in that, but since that would be the 3+ unit threshold, I would likely have to sprinkle that short-term rental.
Likely, yes. That's what I was saying. I think most of the time, if the building isn't already, you'd work with the building official to see if you could work around that. But I mean, ideally, we want all of the structures to be safe, either for permanent residents or visitors.
What we're really saying is that it depends on, that we're kicking it to the building code. If it's a building that would
Yeah.
require fire sprinklers, you will have to provide those fire sprinklers. If it's a building type that does not require that, then it would not be required.
So, Mr. Building Code expert, at the state level at least, does your typical 4-plex require sprinklers?
You'd kick to the commercial building code.
Okay. All right. That answered my question. Thanks.
Any other questions? So, not a part of the update to Title 17, but related, we are updating the fees. So, the existing permit fee was $150 with a $100 annual renewal fee. We've bumped that up to $200 for permits that are in residential zones. We've scaled way back on the previous fee, which was for Type B, and Type Bs used to be reviewed as a Type 3 conditional use permit. So they were $4,590. So scaled way back because we're not making them go through a conditional use permit review. It'll just be administrative. And so short-term rentals in all of our other zones will be $300 and then $150 annual renewal fee. To cover the staff time for our fire inspectors going out and doing annual life safety checks, they do charge $105 per hour for inspections. And so, excuse me, we've amended their section just to note that that fee also covers short-term rentals because they're already going to be inspecting buildings for life safety compliance, and so they know what to look for. They were very gracious in saying they would take this on as long as they were covering their staff time. And then the last thing is that $2 fee that I mentioned for the platforms. And so that is $2 per night collected by the platform and then sent to the Department of Revenue. And usually that's given back to the city quarterly.
A quick question on Title 8 sections. It's interesting and it's important that it's part of the context and council's doing this in tandem, but it's really not part of the consistency review of the commission. Is that correct statement?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
This section is just informational.
Yep.
Plan Commission will not be making a recommendation or a finding on this aspect of it.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened to the formatting on this. That was not supposed to be off the page. One other thing just to mention, so we did want to recognize that there are people who have been following regulations. They get their permit renewed annually. So there is language, and that would apply to the permits in residential zones because currently that's the only place you're really allowed to have them. So there is language in the code to recognize that they can grandfather as long as they maintain what is currently approved under the permit. So that means they cannot expand. If that permit lapses or they stop the short-term rental use, then they would have to come in and apply for a new permit, and they would be subject to the new regulations. So they wouldn't be able to, like, let's say they had a triplex. They couldn't have 2 units in that triplex if they stopped and then had to come back in and apply for a permit. But we did want to recognize that there are people who are currently operating as the rules say that they should, and so we wanted to make sure that they had the ability to continue as long as they're following all of our regulations. Tim?
On the platform fee, who's providing the platform? Is that a city-provided or a state platform?
So all vacation rental platforms have to be licensed in the state of Washington, and so this would be a fee that the platform, whether it's VRBO, Airbnb, I'm trying to think of others, I don't really use them very often. Any of those vacation rentals themselves, they collect the platform at the time that you pay for your rental, and then they send it to the Department of Revenue.
I don't think there's an answer immediately, but I'm kind of curious, and I'll maybe make an opinion during deliberation, but this section where it talks about internal or external changes that will not make the dwelling appear less residential in nature or function are not allowed. I have questions on internal and why internal, but I'd be curious if anyone can think of what goals and policies that might reference to, if you're thinking about consistency there. I don't know off the top of my head, and there's not don't need an answer right now, but let's all think about it for later.
I mean, putting in a commercial kitchen is the first thing that comes to mind for me. So we wouldn't want them in like a traditional single-family residence to put in a commercial kitchen.
But maybe the question is, how can we relate that to consistency with the goal and policy? Because I can't, I'm sure there's something, but that's not coming to mind right now. Yeah, thank you.
So question regarding notification, because you never mentioned notification up here, but when someone gets a permit, they're required to do notification, correct?
So that was one section of the code that we didn't change. So notification of the adjacent property owners is not changing. And we carried, so because we restructured the code to move away from the type B and allow in other zones, that notification carries over. So if you're doing a short-term rental in, say, like our general commercial area, you're going to have to notify the adjacent property owners and provide current planning staff, when you submit for that permit, the list and the certified, your certified mail slip.
Okay, so in a scenario, say you have existing long-term rentals and you're going to convert a couple into short-term rentals. You're going to be required to notify all the adjacent property owners that you are going to have some short-term rentals?
Correct.
But if you were to do long-term rentals, you wouldn't have that requirement.
Correct.
Commissioner Neely has a question.
Oh, Commissioner Neely.
So back to the fourplex thing. Would I have to sprinkle the fourplex if I was using part of it as a short-term rental, or because it's a fourplex?
Because you're using it as a short-term rental. I'm assuming we're talking about, in this example, a fourplex that's previously built. So because a person who's staying in short-term rental is not as familiar with the layout of a building, the building and fire code wants to make sure that they are safe, and that's why the fire sprinklering and, exits and egress comes into play, versus the thought with a long-term tenant, that's someone who gets to know the building and knows where the exit points are. Does that
And
answer
you
your-
made a distinction between a building that already exists. Is there something different in the rules for a fourplex that's just built from the ground up?
So a fourplex that would be built today would be required to do fire sprinklering, and so they would already be meeting that requirement.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go back to notification.
Okay.
I guess I can see notifying your neighbors in a, single-family zoned area. My neighbor just told me, came over and talked to me about it, so I appreciated that. With regards to commercial areas, like say downtown, that seems like a pretty arduous requirement for a fairly minor change. I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking if you're switching from apartments to short-term rentals, how does that impact the person next to you? In a commercial setting, I could see I don't know.
I see your point. There's a lot more
It just seems like a
properties.
lot of individuals to potentially notify
Sure.
for something that seems like a relatively minor change of usage.
I think we wanted to err on the side of caution in regard to notification. So what we did is took our existing notification requirement and applied it for the new non-residential short-term rental permit. I do see your point. So the way that it's structured is it's just meant to be the directly adjacent. So whatever is abutting that parcel and then across the street, which downtown I could see as being somewhat cumbersome because you have some buildings that are condoed or some buildings that have plenty of tenants inside. If there are suggested changes from Plan Commission on amendments to the language, I think we're open to that. But I think we just wanted to err on the side of caution to make sure that the adjacent property owners knew if you see an influx of people coming and going, this is why. And here's the point of contact. So you have to provide contact for them as far as property owner. And if you have a short-term rental management company or manager, who that person is, kind of as like a good neighbor thing where it's like, hey, if we're having issues, like here's who to contact. That way we know and we can mitigate for it.
So it's notification for a permit, but is that a criteria for denying a permit if you have?
If they don't notify?
No. If you notify, say, adjacent neighbors, but neighbors oppose it, is that a criteria that a permit can be denied?
I don't believe that's the way that we've done it since we've instituted
It's not a
permitting for
conditional
short-term
use
rentals.
type situation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's good to know ahead of time approving that permit in case, because the way that these typically work in most cities I've ever been in is they're complaint driven for when issues arise. So if you know ahead of time that there's a neighbor who's feeling contentious about it, it's just good to know as far as like on the planning side.
Thank you.
So just to clarify there, I lost my train of thought, but I had a thing about notification. If there was a desire to propose an amendment, it would be, if you're looking on page A10, subsection D, it says, under permit required, subsection 1, it says notification. That entire subsection 1 could just be eliminated, and that would remove the requirement for notification only in those non-residential areas. So,
Am I thinking about this correctly, that it seems like it's modeled after a conditional use?
well, there's no decision criteria. The desire was to let property owners around the short-term rental know that there's a short-term rental operating, but it's not asking for permission, it's merely notifying.
Right, okay,
I
thank you.
think also it crucially provides them with that owner and operator contact information. Because if you have never spoken to your adjacent property owner, you may not know how to contact them.
Do we have additional questions for Amanda?
This might be a simple question. Why is that in Title 17 and not Title 8? I don't know. Why
The
would permit
notification,
requirements not be in Section 8?
the notification requirements?
Yeah. So I'm looking at, for example, on page 810, that exact one we referenced, Section D, permit required. Shouldn't that just be in Chapter 8?
Title 8 deals with taxes and fees,
Oh,
so that's where we set the fees there, but Title 17 is the more
Permitting,
appropriate
okay.
place for the
Okay.
notification stuff.
Are you thinking about the notification table we have in Title 17 for the different permit types?
well, I can be specific. I just don't, I'm just not familiar enough. So in 17C, yeah, short-term rentals, Section D is the permit required, and I think it makes sense. I'm just not familiar enough with why that's in Title 17, yeah.
Yeah, Title 17 has all of our noticing requirements for other types of
Okay.
actions as well.
Right.
Thanks.
Title 8 is taxation and revenue. That's why the fees were put in there, or rather updated. We're just updating existing language in Title 8.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question. I'm trying to find the language here. I recall that when you were advertising a short-term rental, you were required to post your permit number or something like that. Was that existing?
Yes. I believe so.
Is anyone complying with that today?
The tricky thing about that is we do not have enough staff to go out and physically visit every single one. So I do not have a good answer to that question.
I see one potential issue with that. I know that when I've shopped around for short-term rentals, you often don't know the specific address. And this would allow someone to potentially discover the specific address.
Yes.
I don't know. I've never been an ADU or a ST, a short-term rental operator, so I don't know what the impact of that is. So I could just see that as potentially being, you're advertising a service. So the fact that you're advertising a service, ideally, it'd be nice to know where that service is. I just don't know if it creates a potential security concern for that operator with
Right.
regards to, okay, I see all the vacancies, now I know when that's going to be empty. So, just a point of concern.
That's a good question. I'd have to go back to the actual RCWs. That might be a requirement from the state level that we included the first time. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I see your point that yes, there is a safety concern for the property owner if you can easily by permit number look something up. I don't know that the way the code is worded would require it to be on the platform itself, but so much as like if you've ever been in a vacation rental that basically has like a guest book where it's like, here's the exit plan, here's some restaurant recommendations, like here's contact information, that might be the place that people could be meeting that requirement is like, here's our permit number with the city.
Well, here's the language. It says all advertisements for short-term rental must list short-term rental permit number. And is subject to sign requirements. That's Just kind of wondering what sign requirements are for advertisement.
Thinking back to 2015, before everyone was always on a phone and therefore on the internet, I think that this was relying on the idea that people would have a literal sign, kind of like for rent signs that people used to use.
Oh, okay, so the sign requirements are subject to the actual physical property, not with regards to the advertisement?
Yes.
Because you're advertising in person at that point. Okay, I get that. It almost looked like when you're advertising online, it has to comply with some sort of signage requirement.
Right. We hadn't thought to touch that section of code, to be honest with you. I mean, that definitely could use some clarification. But going back to the original question that you asked, we are not going out and checking all of them. And I mean, given the numbers that we know exist thanks to Granicus, I'm not sure that we would have the staff to do that.
But it seems like Granicus could quickly say, all right, we don't see a permit number, here
Right.
are all your non-compliant.
I think, so yes, they should be able to easily pull information that's listed on the platforms themselves. The problem being if someone chooses to like provide the permit information in person. That way it's kind of gotten past that, like, is this person looking me up through the public records of the city before I say, yes, they can rent my room or my home sort of situation.
I'll just say it, the way I read it is any online platform would have to show the permit number. So,
Were there any other questions I didn't address?
okay. Without any further questions, what we will do at this point is we will switch to public testimony. I have 3 individuals signed up so far. If there are others, there's still sign-up sheets. Let's go ahead and start with Miranda Laporto. Did I get that right?
This is my first time.
Oh, go ahead and state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Miranda Laporto, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran, lifetime local in Spokane, and the president and operations manager of a local short-term rental property management company. The ecosystem of short-term rentals in Spokane is far-reaching and much more complex than the Shaping Spokane Housing proposal addresses. My company alone directly employs or furthers the income-producing activity of at least 50 local individuals and businesses. Our properties are some of the most well-kept units in Spokane, and even reinvigorating entire blocks that have been ridden with crime, drug activity, and pollution, all of which, respectfully, the current city resources have been inadequate to handle. For instance, 6th Avenue and Cannon, where police and SWAT have more recently conducted exhaustive searches for wanted suspects, one STR property owner has championed his entire neighborhood and almost completely rid it of drug activity, loitering, homeless encampments, and sanitation issues from RVs and abandoned vehicles. Himself. Spokane deserves just and enforceable codes, but I'd be interested in the plan to regulate and enforce this code when more pressing matters exist. Many concerned owner-operators who are simply trying to maintain their livelihood by leveraging their property as a short-term rental would express the same sentiments. The citizens of this city have been steadfast and patient throughout the pandemic, extensions of national and local restrictions, and finally the lifting of COVID-related regulations while working and living in this great city. I'm here representing 27 individuals, my clients, who have lived in this town and frequently visit and utilize their STRs during their visit. Many of them strive to leave their mark on Spokane as positive as possible while holding the real estate that they've worked so hard to purchase and maintain. These aren't generationally wealthy investors. They're small families who bought one home and saw value in frequently visiting Spokane without selling their home, which holds great sentimental value. Many of these changes would lay undue burden on law-abiding, contributing members of this community. I could go on all day about the positive impacts that my business and my team have upon our community, but the one that is nearest and dearest to my heart is the one I'd like to share with you. My father has battled chronic illness my entire life, but I was fortunate enough to grow up here. So we were able to frequent his room during hospital stays, but others aren't so fortunate. My team works hard to provide necessary accommodations for many people who must travel to Spokane. During potentially the most tumultuous time of their lives, we're offering clean and comfortable housing with private bedroom and bathrooms, stocked kitchens, and well-kept properties in safe neighborhoods. In recent weeks, we provided accommodations for a child from out of town who needed to travel to Spokane immediately to begin cancer treatment, another who just got moved to the top of the kidney transplant list, and another family from out of town whose elderly parent needed emergency heart surgery. Our work matters, not just to our community in terms of bettering property condition and values, providing value to our neighbors and small businesses, cleaning up the streets, driving tourism dollars to the city, but it also aids outlying smaller communities as well. By limiting multifamily STRs, for instance, you'll be effectively limiting the availability and affordability for these kinds of families to travel to Spokane for urgent, life-saving reasons. Spokane healthcare facilities save lives, there's no doubt. Our contribution to the community greatly outweighs our baggage, and I believe that the planning department could advance the true spirit of shaping Spokane housing by utilizing local resources and professionals that help identify the root problems with housing, not the presumed problems.
15 more seconds.
May I suggest, before submitting your final proposal to the city, bringing in a panel of local experts, and there's a few in this room, to help offer the other side of the coin, or an alternative perspective on how STRs are actually affecting the community and residents. That is people who live and work in this business day in and day out to find out the true value of our contribution to the city and that there is no significant detrimental value to the housing availability and affordability, and identify real solutions with regard to safety and community health and vitality. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Laporto.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Department. My name is Matt Laporto, and I am the owner of a short-term rental management company here in Spokane. I want to start off by making it clear that many of our owners have stayed in compliance with the current short-term rental permit requirements required by the city, and that most of my clients' short-term rentals are a second home for that owner that short-term rents that home when they are not using it. I'm here today, though, to express my concerns regarding the proposed changes to the short-term rental regulations in the city limits of Spokane. I understand the need to strike a balance between the interests of property owners and the needs of the community. However, I am concerned about the negative impact that some of the proposed changes could have with property owners within Spokane city limits. One of my main concerns is the proposed maximum number of short-term rental permits at one property location, i.e. multi-unit properties, or a homeowner who rents out an independent bedrooms in their single-family home. I strongly believe that there should be no cap on short-term rental permits on residential dwellings, which in a lending classification would be 4 units or less. And most of the owners that are purchasing this are purchasing them on residential loans. These aren't big-time investors in commercial products. As residential dwellings are classified as 4 units below, it is important to note that limiting the number of short-term rental permits in such properties could hurt the owner of the short-term rental unit. We are in a tough economic time with sky-high inflation, and many property owners are supplementing their income right now by renting out individual rooms in their single-family home just to make ends meet. You need to consider that a lot of Spokane city citizens' only asset to make ends meet is their home, as they do not have any other means to do so. By City Council passing the proposed 1 permit per single-family residence, that owner would only be able to short-term rent only 1 bedroom. Another example would be an owner of a triplex that does not want to participate in the business of long-term tenant landlording and wants to rent to guests only for 30 days or less in their building. It should be their decision to how long they want to rent their unit to someone, and some property owners simply do not want a tenant. if you enact this regulation, you will be taking away this option to that owner as well. Additionally, if a property owner has a multi-unit property, it does not make sense to limit the number, and I say 4 units or below. It does not make sense to limit the number of short-term rentals in that owner's building, since it could cause problems for long-term tenants who may not want to live a door down to a short-term rental anyway. However, I do understand the need to limit short-term rental units in commercial properties, which I would consider 5 units or more, because in general, since properties could be construed as hotels, and this could lead to many issues. Thus, I suggest that the proposed regulations be modified to reflect this difference between residential, I would say 4 units and below, and then your commercial properties where you're putting percentages of what you can rent out at 5 units or more, because those are the bigger apartment complexes. Furthermore, I would like to address the concern that short-term rentals could cause limited housing supply in the community, which I believe is absolutely untrue. We had a local title company here in Spokane pull the data that indicates there are 103,902 single-family homes and 4,972 multifamily homes, 4 units or less, in Spokane city limits. In contrast, there are approximately 650 short-term rentals in the city. Thus, short-term rentals represents less than 1% of the current housing supply in the city, which is very insignificant. Short-term rentals are not the problem for our current housing supply issue, but provide alternative short-term housing for travelers, tourists, Spokane residents that are in between housing, medical, and so on. In summary, I urge the Planning Department to consider the impact of these proposed changes on short-term rental owners and operators, especially those with 4 units or less, and to modify the regulations accordingly. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next, we have Alicia Newman.
Hi, my name is Alicia Newman, and I'm the owner of Slumber Spokane. We're a local property management company here. We just started about 1.5 years ago, and I'm super nervous, never done this before, but what's crazy is I actually grew up in these halls. Mary Franklin was my mom, and if you've been around here a long time, you know her. So I just feel really grateful to be here, and when Miranda brought up exactly what was going on, I was grateful to come talk about it and my experience. I think Amanda's done great work. I think that working with the planning department is a really great idea to come to sit down, maybe have a little bit more of a discussion on this. Speaking from experience in doing this for about 1.5 years now, the reason why I started doing this was because I was just cleaning short-term rentals on the side while managing Method Juice Cafe, and we just saw an immense need for more rentals for traveling nurses. That's really where this thing took off, is a couple years ago, traveling nurses was booming. I mean, we needed more and more rentals for them. They were coming anywhere from 8 to 13 weeks, and they needed a place to stay. They couldn't stay in a hotel because they just wanted to cook a pan of eggs every morning. And I am part of the Washington Hospitality Association. They actually just added lodging to that, and we joined that so we could work alongside all of our hotels and motels, so we wouldn't take away from what services they offer to specific clients. I actually prefer if you stay in a hotel if you are expecting 5-star door side service. So I will tell you to go do that. Airbnb market is completely different. What we offer is just something, an experience, a special thing for people, especially when they're in town for medical reasons. That's a huge part of our market. Another part of our market is we work with insurance companies. If people are displaced from fire, flood, damages, that is a terrifying thing to go through, and you just want to stay in a place that's like a home. You just got displaced from your home. You have animals, usually pets that come with you, kids, and they just want to stay in a single family residence so they feel like they're at home. We work with retirees that retire and are waiting to get into their retirement communities. Rockwood is one of our biggest partners in this, and they're overbooked. They have way too many people trying to get in there, and so they need a place to go for a couple months, and they want to stay in a single family home so they feel like they're at home. We work with a wide range of people. And our homeowners are not huge investors. They are usually mom and pop, and they just need some help managing the day-to-day. So I would love the opportunity, Slumber Spokane is our company, to just sit down and discuss these things. I absolutely believe that there's some discrepancies, and like Matt was talking about, I don't think we're taking over the city. We want to work together with you to come to a good resolution. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So that's all that I have signed up. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak?
Hello. My name is Keith Riddle. I'm a local real estate investor, and I also own a independent real estate brokerage here in Spokane. Named Synergy Properties. I have about 100 agents there, and we do about 1,000 transactions a year. The only reason I bring that up is because I think that the short-term rental market, at least when I got into it, similar to what Alicia said, was because I saw a need. Oftentimes when people are in a transition where they sell a house and buy a house, they need the funds to buy, and they sell, and they need a place to go in between. And so there's a lot of private real estate forums where people are always asking, say, hey, do you have a place that my family can go? And, to go get a rental, a lot of times landlords want to lock them in a 6-month or 12-month lease. It's just not conducive to their situation. And so my initial investments in the short-term rental category were to fulfill a need, not necessarily for additional cash flow or opposed to traditional rentals. So I think that when it's talked about that short-term rentals are causing a problem with the housing crisis, I think the reality is I bring some kind of grassroots or boots on the ground information with me in the sense of I do 1,000 transactions a year in this town, and I oversee every single one of those transactions, and I see every single transaction that comes across my desk, not just that I do, but that every agent in my office does. And so I get to see a macro picture of this. And what's really causing the housing crisis, right, is a shortage of supply. I mean, we just don't have the supply. The other thing is affordability. We have all-time high interest rates, and prices have inflated. So people can't afford to buy. That's creating a problem. And people that are in their houses and can't afford to buy don't want to sell their house to go to a house that they can't afford, or that they have to trade up to a 6% rate when they're at a 3% rate. So you have a lot of things that are contributors to the housing crisis, and I think affordability is huge, and I also think that just a lack of inventory is huge. But taking the short-term rentals and trying to minimize them or keep them from growing, I think is going to not solve that problem for one, and then cause a bunch of additional problems for people who need that sort of housing, the travel nurses, the people seeking medical care, but also the people just in transition from house to house. So I actually see it as a benefit. It helps a lot of people sell and move that might not be able to because they can't bridge the gap. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to put their kids, their pets, their things. A lot of times their things are in storage, and so they don't want to go rent a house and have to unload all their stuff and then turn around 6 months later and reload all their stuff, right? So it's definitely a convenience play, but I think it's a necessary market, and I think that Airbnb has got a stigma to it, and VRBO has got a stigma to it that kind of tells people that it's vacationers, right? These people are vacationing. I have some short-term rentals in Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene, some smaller cities, and I do think that those cities have an issue with short-term rentals causing a problem in their housing market, but they're very, very small niche markets. Cannon Beach is another example in Oregon. But they're small niche markets that also are tourist markets. People go there for tourism. And so they see a large influx of people moving there or going there for the ski season or for the boating season or for the golfing. Spokane is a big city. It's a small, big city. I don't know how you call it. But there's lots of housing, and I think that the point that this gentleman made, that it's less than 1% of all the housing available. So I don't see it as really contributing to the housing crisis. As far as the safety concerns and the other things like that, I think that those are good things to work through. I think that these people and these companies that do that are happy to work with you guys and play by the rules. But I also think that the clustering of them and separating them is also just from an experiential thing is not going to work as well, because a lot of times if you have a 4-unit, I want to convert all of them, not just one, for a variety of reasons. But it's easier to manage. My cleaners go to one spot. They clean all 4 units. There's people going in and out. I'm managing one building, not 4 buildings. I put those same 4 units in 4 separate places. People are driving. Now I got 4 different lawns and 4 different, it's like, it actually makes more sense for the investor, but also for the people staying. The people staying don't want to feel like they're intruding on somebody's home that's next door who lives there all the time, and they got their kids' bikes on the porch. So I see it actually as an advantageous thing to cluster them together. Because I think it works better for the people staying, better for the neighborhood, and better for the overall investor in general. So I think that there's some conflict with just kind of what I would say the common sense day-to-day of it and what's
15
being
seconds.
proposed.
15
That's it.
seconds.
We're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak? Come on up.
Hi, guys. So my name's Jeff Hornberger. I own a local real estate brokerage and a property management company. And my wife back there, she operates a few of our Airbnbs. So I just want to offer at least a little bit of perspective. So we do a lot of one-bedroom and two-bedroom short-term rentals. And I think there is some negative stigma when it comes to Airbnbs and neighbors, and they think it's going to be a party unit, or, you know, it's going to be issues with just multiple different things. But we've seen that we have definitely solve that need where, you know, we have, you know, traveling nurses, or there's a situation where somebody comes in and needs just a place for a few days. It's not something where, you know, somebody's partying or anything like that, or causing some sort of a ruckus. So the 1 and 2 bedroom units have been really good, and the 3 bedroom units even, we really just have not had that experience where there's been a real issue with noise complaints or anything like that. And I think some of the things, when, you know, we do a fair amount of transactions and we deal with a lot of investors, and so I think some of these landlord-tenant laws that are coming down the pike are causing more issues or causing more people to go to STR. So I think some of the changes that we're trying to make in this proposal may not be solving the actual issue at hand. So, you know, some of the sprinkler requirements and things like that, I think that's almost like an easy button, where it could be a big barrier of entry to, you know, a lot of investors that may not be able to get into the space because of that. But, you know, I think that in terms of the safety of these properties, a lot of these, you know, units are one door in, one door out. We have fire exit plans that are up on the walls. And if I guess I just want to offer a perspective, but so for long-term rentals, we have more occupancy. Like throughout the year, there's more occupancy than there is in an STR. So if the fire sprinkler requirement applies for the long-term, or the STR, then why wouldn't it apply for the long-term if it's a safety requirement? So it almost seems like it's just designated to the STR as a barrier of entry, as like a, you get my point there. But, and then also just, I think with these extra requirements and things like that, I think there's just like this overall negative stigma that investors are not wanting to purchase in the city. They're watching this very closely, and I think it's having a negative impact on the number of units that they're wanting to buy and wanting to invest in. They're going over, you know, state line to, you know, invest over there as, you know, as laws and regulations get a little crazier over here. So anyway, just wanted to offer that perspective. So that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Got 2 more out there. Come on in.
President Francis? May I make a
Yes.
just quick comment?
Sure.
Thank you so much. I think in 8 years on this commission, that was the most informed testimony I think I've heard on a subject that I needed to help understanding better. So thank you for coming down.
I concur. Okay. Amy, I don't think there's any online participants. So with that, we are going to go ahead and close public testimony, and we can then begin deliberations. Oh, I guess we maybe should make a motion so we could actually begin deliberations.
I would like to move that the recommended approval of the changes to SMC 17C.316 on short-term rentals be approved as written and presented.
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Baker, and second, Commissioner Winger. Okay.
Oh, can I
go
start
ahead.
with, maybe we can address a couple things, especially while people are still here. Because a couple questions were raised or maybe topics that I had questions on. So maybe we can better understand the fire one thing one more time. So if it's a single unit or it's under, and Amanda, maybe we could use some help here. Again, just restating what I think
I
we.
can answer questions too if.
Oh, okay.
I've been involved enough that I kind of know
Understood,
some of
yeah.
the answers too.
But come on up,
So
Amanda.
let's unpack this 20% threshold. If it's a single unit, if it's an ADU, that's not necessarily triggering fire suppression. Although I got to think about that because some of our ADU life safety codes do require fire suppression. I guess that's if it's attached, right? But let's not get in the weeds on that. That's a life safety and building code issue. But otherwise, it's not a requirement, right?
Correct. Essentially, we would not treat a short-term rental any differently than a long-term rental from the life safety perspective.
If it's a detached.
The difference is that for structures that were built under previous codes that didn't make requirements of those, so for sprinklers is sort of the common one. So a fourplex that was built in the 1950s may not have had sprinklers installed because it wasn't required at the time. It's operating, let's say it's operating currently as a long-term rental. If that owner comes in and wants to convert to a short-term rental, what we're saying is you're going to need to bring it up to today's standards for life safety.
But in
So
terms
the
of.
long-term and short-term are
Yeah.
essentially have the same requirements applied, but you're kind of losing the status, the grandfathered status of operating in a building that didn't have it.
On some sort of plex. But again, I think we can take detached houses and detached accessory dwelling units and put them off to the side because those would
Correct. Those would not require sprinklers
okay.
under any
Just to
scenario.
clarify.
So sprinklers are not required in detached single-family, attached single-family, so townhomes, duplexes, and then in most cases, ADUs.
Now, so that, we put that off the side unless it was rolled into a change of use requirement.
So the way that we wrote it, those ones wouldn't hit the change of use, and frankly, in those sorts of structures, that's part of the reason why we looked at multifamily structures. That is a change of use.
Yep.
If you need something to fire a sprinkler in a single-family home, your occupant load or whatever it is that's happening inside, like the building and fire code see that as a change of use because it's no longer primarily residential in nature.
That's an important point, yeah. Thank you.
I had a question. If somebody stays in a residence for 31 days, that doesn't apply because that would be long-term.
That is correct. You could be operating a short-term rental where somebody rents it for 31 days, and you may not know that in advance, so you would be, filing for your permits to operate as a short-term rental. But that is correct. If I were a landlord that wanted to rent my property out for 31 days, I could do that without a short-term rental permit.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Winger. That's a really good point of clarification. So the way the code, both our code and the state code is written is it's 30 days. So if you rented it for 2 months, that's a long-term rental.
Thank you.
I'll add on that if it's all right. This is pretty consistent at the building code and fire code level where occupancy matters because the short-term, the egress, the just familiarity, so forth, it's a topic that I don't think we're going to get around. At the building code level, we've just recently, as a state, gone through a process to bring R4, and this is inside baseball, but those are, this is dealing with similar issues of multi-sleeping units and things like that, and the requirements for different fire rating and fire suppression and things like that are going to be real, and I think that's a hard one to get around. It was helpful, Amanda, to understand that this section, I'll state it, just so 17C.316.C5, and that's on page A5, that this 20%, am I in the right spot? I'm thinking of the 20%, I'm not in the right spot. I want to comment on that one too. The 20% or the 30% is coming from the fire official, fire marshal, perhaps.
So are you talking B2?
Well, okay, now that I'm in that topic, let's get it right. Where is it?
On A4, B2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bingo.
All right. I thought that was a political statement, and I hope we kind of stay away from political position on any of this, from a neighbor standpoint or from so forth, and think about health and well-being and design, which is in our purview to look at consistency. I think there's some really good points made that as long as, if I understand it correctly, there's a pathway towards conditional use change, if that's what is required to get more or all of the units into short-term rental, then we could talk about the technical side of how you do that. I'm sure council is going to get a lot of input, obviously, from just resistance to this kind of thing. I think I'll give my position, my opinion is that we absolutely need to create pathways for short-term rentals. And I think it's valid that the city also wants to bring in fees, because I haven't heard yet that the market can't absorb those. And I think by bringing in fees, then obviously that's important that they're viable from a city standpoint, but also that the opportunity is there to go capitalize on this and create more housing. So I'm also challenged to understand where the data is that says these are interfering with our current housing. I appreciate the comment on more tourist areas, right? Vacation rentals, that's not what we're talking about here. Go ahead, yeah.
Well, we'll continue that conversation. Commissioner Neely? Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I have this right, I mean, the folks that were talking about limitations on STRs on a given property, am I wrong in saying that the only limitations, following up on what Todd was talking about, the only limitations are those that were dictated by the fire department for life safety? Is that essentially, as a broad brush statement, is that essentially correct?
So Commissioner Neely, we came up with the thresholds with the fire marshal and building official. Those were what they were comfortable with.
Right. So my point to the people in the audience is that it's important to understand where that limitation came from, and that limitation has been entered into this discussion simply from a life safety standpoint. And just a general statement on our discussions on short-term rentals, I seem to pick up a feeling from our audience members that they thought for some reason that this body has a problem with short-term rentals. I've not, in the year I've been on this commission, I haven't heard us take a negative view towards short-term rentals. If anything, considering the work we did on auxiliary drilling units, we know that the city needs housing almost in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, now I need to be clarified here. When it comes to both on page A4, B1 and B2, where it is specifying the maximum number of units, that is a fire code official negotiation that came up with that language.
Correct.
Is there any pathway to doing more short-term rentals within a single residence? I mean, so, and I think that was something that Commissioner Bayreuther was asking. Like, if they sprinkled a single-family residence, would that then allow them to create, have multiple short-term rental units within that residence?
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
If you're talking about a single residence, that would not need to be sprinkled and it could have, I mean, you wouldn't have multiple short-term rental permits attached to a single unit, right?
Right, but the current language is one short-term rental unit per single-family residence.
So the way that our current planners walk people through the permit process is regardless of if people want to do rooms or not, we recommend that they say they're going to rent the whole house in their permit. So they would show, like the general layout as far as the like exits and where the rooms are. That way, if you want to do rooms, you have the ability to. So you can rent 2 rooms tied to that one short-term rental permit.
Okay, could you rent 2 rooms to 2 separate entities?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I realize that it sounds very much like splitting hairs, and this is just part of the way that we write code. We want to not box ourselves in by regulating people to death and allowing some room for them to say, well, I want to rent 3 rooms, and then say, well, you have to get 3 separate permits for that one structure.
So, okay, I want to ask this because that's not the way I interpreted this. So if with one permit, you could rent potentially 3 separate rooms within a residence to 3 separate individuals.
Correct.
I'm going to highlight section 17C316.020, which is the definitions. And if you look under A, it says short-term rental. A short-term rental means a lodging use that is not a hotel or motel in which a residential dwelling unit or portion thereof is rented to overnight guests. So that's the portion thereof could be 3 bedrooms of that unit. They all fall under the same permit. There would not be a separate permit process for each bedroom.
Correct.
Does that answer your question?
Well, it does in a way. I think of them being rented as a single entity versus 3 independent entities. So do you see where?
We're dealing with like living units, residential
Right.
units.
Mm-hmm.
How that gets distributed within, whether it's 2 bedrooms that get rented to 2 separate people or whatever, all falls under the same permit because we're just looking at the living unit.
I think I understand, President Francis, how you are interpreting the way the code is written itself. And I think that in practice, the way that our current planners have applied that is it seems onerous to require a separate permit for each bedroom because they're still within one unit. And so we tie the permit to the structure, the unit itself, the dwelling unit.
Okay, for me to be perfectly clear, because again, I read it in a different way, I could advertise with one permit, I could advertise 3 separate units on Airbnb or whatever service, 3 separate units for rent.
Not units.
Under that one,
Are you
3
talking about
separate
units or
bedrooms.
bedrooms?
3 separate bedrooms.
Right.
Separate listings, how about?
I could
that's
have
a
3
better-
separate listings for the same permit in the same residence.
If it's the same residential unit, yes.
Correct.
I'm just wondering, how did other people interpret that language?
Well, I had a question.
I
about
interpreted
that
it
was
the same way you did.
Yeah.
I would ask you guys, but I can't. So,
It seems,
You have
it seems counterintuitive, certainly. And I was looking to get that parsed out as one of my questions as well. And I think I fall in a relatively same place as you do, where I see the planning department is looking at it from a quantity of housing units perspective and not a quantity of listings necessarily perspective. And I don't know what would be inserted to make that more clear in the definitions necessarily, but I too am confused a little bit between the reading and that interpretation.
Is the word unit defined?
Commissioner Winger?
So to
Anywhere?
clarify, if you have one postal address, 123 Main Street, number 4, then all the bedrooms in that postal address would be covered under the permit.
Correct.
Is that right?
That is how we have interpreted this, yes.
So if I had a 5-bedroom house, I could rent out every room separately.
Yes.
That's how you chose to run your permit? Yes, because you would have separate listings. But your permit covers the entirety of the structure. And again, going back to what Spencer said, that's in the definitions, which is 17C 316020A. And that is also reflected in the state's RCWs of how we define what a short-term rental is. It can be the entire house, it can be a room, a portion.
I'll shift just for a second here to, we can think about that more. And thank you, everyone, for being patient with us while we wrap our heads around, because our task here is to figure out consistency with the comprehensive plan. I personally think the concept is consistent because we're trying to increase opportunities here. But I think we need to try to understand and carve out, if necessary, where unnecessary restrictions that might just be, I'm trying to understand it when they're political or when they're actually based on some sort of, grounded in some sort of life safety or other concern. In 17C 316.040B on page A4, same area, why under B1, why does it say duplex? Why do we have to create the restriction there on a type that's still one building, because it says rentals are calculated by structure, that we're only can have one short-term rental in there?
Commissioner Bayreuther, to answer your question, that again comes down to what structures are reviewed for building under the International Residential Code
Yep.
versus the International Building Code. So duplexes are
IRC.
Yes,
Yep.
IRC.
Well, why can we only have one unit then?
So I think some of the tension in this unit cap comes from direction that we got from City Council, which is they wanted to see us limit short-term rentals. And so
For political reasons. Okay, I'm saying it. I'm saying it. I want everyone to talk about it.
I can't comment on that.
They didn't say that for political reasons.
Well, no, and it's their purview. They have to do that. That's their job. They're elected officials.
I think nationally there is concern in many communities that there are negative effects from short-term rentals. There are some studies that are starting to come out that show that they have an impact on both home prices and rentals. And particularly if you live in a vacation community, say like Durango, Colorado, that is of particular concern because you have a huge influx during your like high peak tourism season that impacts your workforce housing need. So I think staff has tried very hard to balance the fact that we know that there are developers that like to utilize short-term rentals to basically subsidize affordable units within a building by being able to collect that revenue, or maybe it's to pay back their construction loan to make a project feasible. But also the tricky part of being in planning is that we are responsible to many different stakeholders and they all have different interests. And so we're trying to balance the need to allow this and try and allow developers or whoever it is, real estate agents, property owners, to utilize it for their second home or whatever it is. And also that we've heard from community members that they are concerned that this is impacting our long-term housing supply. So
Heard from whom?
So during the Housing Action Plan, the impact of short-term rentals on the long-term housing supply came up, and that's part of the reason why there's a particular strategy in the Housing Action Plan that addresses we should take action on short-term rental code.
By the way, I don't mean to put you in an uncomfortable position. You're doing great at this. We get to say something different than obviously you as planning department
Trying
get
to
to.
provide context for you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Recommendation.
So if I push back on that, not on you, of course, what defensible data exists in Spokane that says we have that problem? We're not Cannon Beach, right? What points, if someone were to say that and come give an opinion to City Council, what's defensible about that?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's
I'm
specific.
not sure
like,
Amanda's
'cause
ready to
No,
answer
I
that.
know.
Okay.
Because I'm like, because a fair question, like, prove it? And who can do that?
I want to just ask really quickly, can I try to restate your original question to Amanda to get some clarification?
Please.
On the question of a duplex, that restriction specifically, I don't think we discussed anything specifically with fire about duplexes. So the 20% number was conversations with fire. I don't think we could point to the duplex and say that was a conversation with fire. I think that was your original question, and so that
Absolutely.
there's the answer to that one.
Yes, we were trying to make it easy to administer, and so we were looking at that multi-unit threshold. So since a duplex is reviewed under the International Residential Code or IRC, we said, okay, we'll lump these structure types together and then look at multifamily for the threshold that building and fire are more concerned about maintaining.
Because I would, if I made a motion to strike duplex there, then the sentence doesn't even make sense because it's just kind of captain obvious.
We'd probably want to reword it in some way.
Yeah.
Do you want me to think about some language to give you? I could do that.
I'll open it up to the commission before I make a motion, but I think that's
Okay.
That's not health and well-being and design of city. That's in our realm to recommend to the council.
Commissioner Bank?
I agree generally with the tenor of the conversation, and I think there's some higher level concepts here that I just want to sort of make clear for the record and for any council members that may be watching this is just to say point blank that this is not a vacation community. This is a city, and it's a center of economic activity, and it as such has a broader catchment basin and a broader set of needs, as some of the speakers today have pointed out, than a Sandpoint or Coeur d'Alene or Cannon Beach or what have you. So the pressures are different. I think it's fair to say that those economic pressures for these units are different. I understand where the concern comes from with respect to housing supply. We do, as we've talked, ad nauseum with this body on housing supply, and that is something that we need to keep tabs on. My question with all of this, and not to undo all of the great work that's been done by staff, but why are we not looking at a market-wide unit threshold for how many units we're willing to say is appropriate in the market, rather than, well, this housing type in this zone can have this many, and this housing type in this zone can have this many? Why are we not just saying we think the market can bear whatever, 1,500 units, 2,000 units, whatever we think is the appropriate number as a market to take out of the housing supply for this different needed use, rather than get into this really Byzantine, well, you're rounding up to this many units over here, and that allows the market, because there's an economic, there's economic forces at play here where the units in certain areas are more viable or more needed than they are in other areas, and some of this sort of fine-grained attempts at regulating ultimately a number could sort of cause things to go into other areas because there just isn't the availability in the area where they need to be. So I recognize that that's a much larger question that we're not going to solve tonight, but I wanted to bring it up for benefit of the record.
Commissioner Williams?
Amanda, you had a pie
Can you
chart.
use a microphone?
You had a pie chart on how many of the 648 STRs were single family.
Yes.
And as I recall, that was like most of them, or it was like 500 out of, roughly 80%. That's kind of what it looked like. Or am I incorrect? Because I couldn't see it very well over.
So over half of the types that are rented are
So it
single
looks like
family
more like
homes.
2/3 of the single family. And
Yeah.
those are those like single family homes that there's no owner present? The full unit would be rented out to like an Airbnb or VRBO, I guess I should say in this case.
So that gets a little bit trickier because first they're looking at, is this a detached single family home or is this multifamily? And then if you look at the room type pie chart, which notes that mostly the listings that they've found, it's someone renting the entire house. And then we get additional data as far as, well, like, this is how many rooms that house contains. I think we have the ability with Granicus to drill down to see what exactly that data is as far as.
So roughly 2/3 of these STRs are single-family homes, and most of those, they probably rent the entire unit, but not all of them.
Right.
So maybe half, if you're just kind of estimating at this point in time.
Right. And unfortunately, I just want to caveat, those numbers will shift a little bit as the active listings change.
Okay, well, that was one question. The other thing I'm concerned about, having worked in the finance area for a long time, a $2 per night fee if somebody does, say, 200 nights a year on their short-term rental, that's like $400 a year, and there's paperwork and different aspects of that. I'm kind of, what's driving the need for the $2 fee? Do we have to reimburse someone, or is it just?
They don't collect it, it goes to.
I'll comment on that. That particular section was added in response to coordination with council members. We've had discussions with council members about the short-term rental code along the way, and that particular part is essentially in working with council, that is something that they requested to have added.
Yeah.
Well, and
Just following
ultimately,
up on
that cost is borne by the provider, not, correct? The Airbnb platform or whatever is responsible for collecting that fee.
Yes.
So the individual operator wouldn't be required to complete any paperwork. Is that correct?
Correct. To address the first part of your question, Commissioner Williams, the host wouldn't need to do anything. It's meant to be on the platform. So the platform, regardless of which one they are, that is something that they are taking care of. I'm sure that is a fee that gets passed on, through the chain to the ultimate person who's renting for that night or whatever it is. But the property owner themselves or the manager, they don't need to worry about that. It's the platform's job to collect the fee, send it to Department of Revenue, and then DOR sends it back to us. And this is something that the platforms already do in regard to lodging taxes.
All right. My concern is that if we have 400 of these units that comply and they do 200 nights a year, it's 160,000, and that's a pretty small amount for a fee to implement across a whole lot of people and transactions. So it's hardly worth it in this broad scheme of raising money. So it adds administrative complexity. So I'm kind of on the record as that's not a good idea, even though the city council does think it's a good idea.
I think of it as the interpretation would be, as we look at affordable housing, that we're like doing this for 1590 funds for the 0.1% sales tax revenue. And to me, it's likely to help supplement affordable housing projects. But I don't know
You're
where
bringing in
it
so
came from.
little money for that effort. That's where I'm.
We could always
I
raise
do
it.
want to just reiterate that that's not an aspect of this that Plan Commission needs to make recommendation on, since that's in Title 8. So,
Out of our purview is what you were saying?
right, we included that for informational purposes, but that's,
Well,
Mary?
It's on the record.
I was just trying to say, it's like Amazon that collects taxes. And they collect the taxes and they send them to the state. The people that are selling the goods don't have anything to do with it. The tax collection happens at Amazon, and Amazon sends it forward. So it's not paperwork for anybody but somebody like Amazon. And if it's 160,000, I would be all for it, because we need the revenue in this city. Witness our budget right now.
Commissioner Bayrither?
Okay, I'll take us back to 17C and move us on from maximum number of rental units. I think it's actually pretty easy. I don't even think there's language needed unless you're working on it, Director Gardner. I think I'd like to make a motion to strike from section 17C.316.040B, strike 1 and 3, which means it only, can I speak to that? That's the motion. I have to hear a second before I can speak to it, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Commissioner Bayrether and Commissioner Winger.
Okay, thank you. And then speaking to that motion, what that does is it just isolates it to the life safety issue of fire, and then it throws it back to the council if they really want to put those back in for other reasons. But we're saying those two are not consistent with the comprehensive plan in terms of because we're putting a restriction on creating more housing units.
We have this motion on the table. Commissioner Neely had a comment before. Commissioner Neely, do you want to speak to this, or can we resolve this motion before you talk about your other item?
No, Mr. President, go ahead with this latest motion.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak to the motion?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
So you're proposing to strike, my computer died, so I can't look at it right now, but you're proposing to strike that section that says short-term rentals allowed in a detached single-family residence, attached house, or duplex?
B1 and B3.
Well, I have one worked up. My concern about striking it completely is we do like it to be clear that they are allowed in those circumstances. So I have a sentence that I can run over to you,
Sure.
and maybe you can use that.
Sure.
Okay, and I'll make a comment about number 3. So on number 3, that's the one that deals with accessory dwelling units.
Yep.
So from the planning perspective, there wouldn't really be a problem with striking that, except that in the accessory dwelling unit code, it specifies that, well, let's see. What does the sentence say? Sorry, again, my computer's dead.
So section 3 says, on lots where there is an accessory dwelling unit, in addition to the primary building, a short-term rental use as the ADU counts towards the maximum number of units. So I assume that means you can only have one out of the two.
Correct. So the challenge there is in the accessory dwelling unit code, which is a separate section, we do have a provision that the owner must live on site.
But would striking it here then just defer to that?
Yeah, I guess striking it here would just defer to that. So I think that's fine if.
Okay. And then I can read the, so for 1, a short-term rental is allowed in a detached single-family residence or attached house. A short-term rental is allowed in one or both units of a duplex.
Yeah. We like to make sure it's in there and clear so that there's no ambiguity about, so striking it would remove some of that clarity.
So are you amending
I can amend it to read.
so that B1 just basically strikes maximum of 1?
Well, I think it's I think it strikes the language in 1 and replaces it with what I just read.
Okay,
So I make that amendment.
Yeah.
And I'll second it.
Okay, can you restate that?
Yep. So strike B1 and replace with a short-term rental is allowed in a detached single-family residence or attached house. A short-term rental is allowed in one or both units of a duplex.
Okay, and you seconded that, Commissioner Winger?
Commissioner Winger asked, and strike 3 is still in the motion.
Correct.
Okay, and I second that then.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? On the amendment? Hearing none, let's take a vote on that amendment.
Michael Baker,
Aye.
Jesse Bank,
Aye.
Todd Byrather,
Aye.
Greg Francis,
Aye.
Chris Neely,
Aye.
Tim Williams,
Aye.
Clifford Winger.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Neely, you had your hand up for quite a while.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding, I think it was Commissioner Banks who was talking about wanting to go on the record as to I'm going to paraphrase badly here, but coming up with like a set limit of, a number that the market would hold for short-term rentals. I'd just like to go on the record as saying I oppose that strongly because I'm in big favor of letting the market decide how many short-term rental units the market is capable of supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I agree. I understand and I love to have that discussion. I think in the terms of letting the market decide on this, from a city standpoint, it's revenue, and it's also addressing the housing crisis. So it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, and I think I really purely said it from if the thing that we're concerned about is managing housing supply, why not look at it that way?
I guess I would frame it from the perspective of what can the market bear? How much additional housing do we require above and beyond for our permanent residents to support this? And I don't know if there's an effective analysis to do that. So
there sure is.
Okay, so do we have other amendments? Commissioner Bayreuther.
Okay, same sections, meaning 17C.316.040. Let's go to C5 on page A5. This is a section that deals with appearance of short-term rentals. And it says, I'll just read it quickly because it's quick. Appearance, residential structures may be remodeled for the development of a short-term rental subject to required approvals and permits. A says structural alterations may not be made that prevent the structure from being returned to use as a residence in the future. And then B, internal or external changes that will allow the dwelling to appear less residential in nature and functions are not allowed. And then it gives examples. I don't think this has any place in this code. We don't even have design standards yet for single-family residential yet. I mean, we'll get there, but and then I think the statement, and this is not criticism again of the code language. I think there's pressure to put this in there. That's not good code language because saying things like, well, first of all, internal, that's nobody's business. I appreciate the example of the stove. I think that's an interesting one. Yeah, that's not criticism again. But then saying this language that will make the dwelling appear less residential, what does that mean? And I'm not even sure I agree with that statement. We had a discussion earlier today about in the future going towards neighborhood retail, maybe these things should look like a different typology than a house or a garage or whatever. Maybe that's a good thing as we get into more live-work typology. So I don't want to limit it by putting a discretionary, subjective language in like that. So I make a motion to strike that entire section 5.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bayreuther and Commissioner Bank. So we understand the motion is to strike 5,
Yep.
which is the whole appearance item.
Yep.
Okay,
President
discussion on
Francis?
that? Yes.
Can I just point out so that in section 17C 316050, B1, we would need to make the same motion to amend that sentence similar to what is in 17C 316040 about allowing a duplex to have a short-term rental in either or both units. And then additionally, on page A10,
So
yes.
let me catch that one. So that phrasing actually appears twice, and your amendment covered one of them, but we need to get the other
Correct.
one
So
too.
actually, both of your amendments are reflected in the non-residential short-term rental section. So on A10, well, A9 and A10, there is also a section about appearance. It's subsection 4. And so that deals with keeping the residential nature of the structure.
Good information. So, okay, in A10, Okay, I see C4, which starts on A9.
Mm-hmm.
But that's in a, what's the other zone?
So any other zone that's not residential, it's just easier to say non-residential than calling out all of our various other zoning districts.
So it can still be a residential property within a
Correct.
non-residential zone.
Right, because we permit residential uses in almost all of
Oh.
our zones. It's
So it's still not subject to design review necessarily, right?
correct.
Okay.
So it'd be any type of residential structure. I mean, we do have some smaller single-family homes in non-residential areas or duplexes.
Okay. So I guess on this one, can I amend my motion to also strike 17C 316.050
C4.
C4. No, there's two fours. The appearance one, C4.
Well, there are two fours.
That is a
Okay.
clerical error.
Yeah, clerical error,
Yes.
but the appearance
We'll fix that, and we know
Yep.
which one you're talking about.
Well, you won't need to fix it.
You
if
don't need to fix
strike that
anything.
line.
That's true. You can fix that problem for us.
We're just helping you. Okay, so
Yeah, second.
you,
Yeah.
okay, Jesse accepts the amendment to the amendment. Okay, so discussion about this item. So this proposed amendment would strike the appearance requirements in both residential and non-residential zones, both interior and exterior look.
and structure.
Any further discussion on that amendment?
I mean, I guess one question, I know the issue of signs has been raised as something that was getting at. Do we not have a sign code regulation somewhere else in the code that would get at that?
We do have sign codes. I think, I believe the concern was that it gets back to the issues with, some people not wanting these to appear like a hotel or some kind of, operating thing. So in the sign code, you may be able to post a sign on the house indicating, something about the short-term residential nature of it and fit within the sign code itself. So I think the desire was to also prohibit that.
Okay.
I think the existing sign code would actually cover it because there are like professional services that are allowed within residential neighborhoods where you can have a small placard or something. It's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going
And
to
I just
really
don't
stand
know
out.
what other appearance issue beyond signs would, parking lots maybe, but I think those are probably dealt with elsewhere in the code as well. I think the internal regulations are ridiculous, frankly, that we would have anything to say about what goes on the inside, unless it has some sort of huge impact on the outside, an incinerator or something. But again, I think most of those things are covered elsewhere in the code.
If I may add, I'm main motivation here is I'm worried there could be conflict with other areas where you get into life safety issues where you have to change something, but then you say it appears less residential. Well, maybe it needs to appear less residential because you need egress or something
And what
like
is the
that.
standard against which, where is the matrix that decides what appears residential and what doesn't?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but that's my
Yeah.
concern. Yeah.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, Jackie, let's take a vote.
All right, Michael Baker,
Aye.
Jesse Bank,
Aye.
Todd Byrather,
Aye.
Greg Francis,
Aye.
Chris Neely,
Aye.
thank you, Tim Williams,
Aye.
Clifford Winger.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you.
So I make a motion to clean up the same section to, to add to section 17C 316.050B to repeat the same.
This is the duplex thing.
the duplex.
Right.
And the ADU.
Yeah.
So you're revising 050B1 to
Maybe I should complete my sentence.
Yeah.
To match, our action on,
previous amendment in
Right.
040.
is that clear enough?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
We have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Baker. Okay, so the motion on the table is to amend, or the amendment is 050, change the language of B1 to what we did previously in section 040, and then strike B3. Any discussion on that? All right, hearing none, let's vote again. We're going to keep you exercising here, Jackie.
Gonna get my steps in. All right, Michael Baker.
Aye.
Jesse Bank.
Aye.
Todd Byrather.
Aye.
Greg Francis.
Aye.
Chris Neely.
Aye.
Tim Williams.
Aye.
And Clifford Winger.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Next motion, Commissioner Baker.
No, the only other thing that I just have uneasiness about is this notification thing, but I don't know that.
Well, I have concerns about the notification requirement. So, does anyone want to make an attempt at that? I mean, I think it's a good thing within the residential areas where you have, it's good to let your neighbors know that there's someone operating a short-term rental next door, and it's nice when the operator just does that out of the goodness of their heart. But I think just drives it forward. But I don't think it's necessarily necessary in the commercial zones, in the non-residential areas, where you're going to have a lot more commercial work, where you're having a lot of different fluctuations in use types. And so I just don't think it's necessary there.
I think it places a burden on the applicant.
I just don't understand the line, because I understand in a conditional use permit, right, you go out for a request for information because there is a decision being made by someone, right? I guess the planning director in that case, ultimately, and then the hearing examiner. But in this case, you're going to get the permit. It's like applying for a business license. Or am I misunderstanding the nature of this?
You want me to answer that, or? I think the answer is, again, there is no decision attached to it, so it's not like the neighbor can come in and say, I don't want this, and then there's the ability to quash it. But I think the idea is to include it as a gesture towards making sure neighbors understand. So,
Didn't we just, isn't there precedent, and we just, as a city, set in terms of short plating? There's no decision there at certain levels,
No.
but we removed the noticing requirement for low thresholds?
well, we took that action last year, yes.
Yeah. But there still was noticing, remember, on the larger?
Over four.
There's still noticing that happens there.
And then, aren't there postcards too? We go out to 400 feet?
It depends on it depends on the short plat and some of the parameters around
Maybe
it, but
it
we
was
did
just the site,
simplify
I
that,
remember.
so.
Yes.
I'll just say, I think in residential areas that, we'll get to you in a moment, Commissioner Neely, that it is a good neighborly thing to do, and I know the city has put good neighbor clauses into certain elements of their code. Does it alter, to me, it becomes, you're not doing a change of use. And so it just becomes you get a bypass that change of use, and in return, you're just going to notify your neighbor that adjacent properties that you're going to have short-term rentals in that unit. I don't think that's a bad thing. Commissioner Neely.
Two thoughts. One, I think from a commercial standpoint, being able to tell your neighbors that there may be additional parking issues associated with your short-term rental has value. And secondly, I would have to go along with something somebody said earlier about we'd all like to be able to walk up and down, commercial streets, at night. But the reality is that there are bad actors in our world who are bad actors. And so being able to tell your commercial business next door, don't panic if you see all kinds of different people, tall, purple, blue, square, whatever, going in and out here. It's just because I've switched this to a short-term rental. Just helps allay that security concern. Thank you.
Okay.
President Francis, can I make a comment? I just want to clarify, the notification part is actually part of the existing code. So this isn't a new requirement that we're adding. What would be new is that we've broken it out between residential and non-residential. And anyway, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I don't know if that was clear earlier.
Okay. Well, absence of a motion, I will make a motion. I move to strike 17C.316.050 D1, which is notification for non-residential uses.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker.
Can I suggest a change? I mean, the same thing, but under 2, you would also want to strike the requirement to include the notice in the application. If there will be no notice, then there should be no requirement to include it.
I will amend my original motion to include striking 2D. You want to see that language? Is this a copy of the notification letter? You just, if there's no notice, you don't need to send the copy of the notification letter.
The second accepts the change.
Okay, so does everybody understand? Basically, this drops notification requirement for non-residential properties. It still would be required, at least under my motion, or my proposed amendment, for residential properties.
Yeah, I think this kind of recommendation from the commission is okay, because it just raises the question to the council. They have the prerogative to go back and put it in, but it just raises the question of consistency to them. So I think it's appropriate.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? All right, let's take a vote.
Michael Baker.
Aye.
Jesse Bank.
Aye.
Todd Byrather.
Aye.
Greg Francis.
Aye.
Chris Neely.
Aye.
Tim Williams.
Aye.
Clifford Winger.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, are there any further amendments to consider?
I call for the question on the original motion.
You always do that. All right, that's going to trigger an immediate vote. Only a vote on calling the question. So it's 2/3 vote in favor of calling the question means an immediate vote on the original motion as amended. So we're going to vote on calling the question. If we achieve a 2/3 threshold, we vote immediately on the original motion.
Just stay put. Okay, Michael Baker.
Aye.
Jesse Bank.
Aye.
Todd Byrather.
Aye.
Greg Francis.
Aye.
Chris Neely.
Positive, but I think it's.
Aye.
Tim Williams.
Aye.
And Clifford Winger.
Aye.
Okay, the question has been called, I guess. With that, we are now going to take a vote on the original motion as amended.
All right, Michael Baker.
Aye.
Jesse Bank.
Aye.
Todd Byrather.
Aye.
Greg Francis.
Aye.
Chris Neely.
Aye.
Tim Williams.
Aye.
Clifford Winger.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
With that, we are done with our hearing, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
You can always count on me for the
I
question.
know.